He is the ultimate hyphenate, senior writer for Sports Illustrated and analyst for Fox, and an Emmy Award winner as well. Also for Major League Baseball Network. Tom Verducci back here on the Rich Eisen Show. Good to see you, Tom.
Good to see you, Rich.
I have questions, Tom. I've got a lot of questions. Yeah. I have many questions. All right. Give me the TikTok on what happened with Shohei Ohtani at the end of last week, and then that culminated with his Instagram post that he's going to the Dodgers.
Yeah, well, I think he wound up at a place we thought maybe since he was in high school, right? The Dodgers thought they were going to sign him out of high school. And when this free agency began, I think we all expected he was going to wind up with the Dodgers. And how it came to be, no one saw this coming in terms of Toronto being really the only other finalist here in the sweepstakes. And especially the contract. $700 million just was a jaw-dropping number. Of course, it took a couple of days before he figured out, well, it's maybe not exactly $700 million. It's more like $460 million in present-day dollars. But I think, Rich, you have to look at this differently. First of all, we know he's the unicorn, right? So why not have a unicorn contract? And it is. There's nothing like it that never has been in baseball. Completely legal, completely within the bounds of the collective bargaining agreement. And most importantly, this was Shohei's idea. Shohei sat down with both teams and said, I want to defer most of my money. He actually started out telling his agent, Nez Bolello, can I defer everything? And he looked up and was like, well, you can't play for free. You have to play for at least the minimum. And they settled on $2 million. So now Ohtani is making less than Austin Barnes, the backup catcher for the Dodgers. And he's the most talented player in the history of baseball, making less than a backup catcher. So, the Dodgers got themselves, and you can say this for a $700 million contract, a true bargain. So much so that now they're going after Yoshinobu Yamamoto and Josh Hader because of the money they saved on Ohtani. It's crazy.
It is. All right. So let's take it one at a time here. So why did Ohtani not go in the direction of the Northeast? Why didn't because I imagine the Yankees and the Red Sox would have fallen all over themselves to enrich him in the same way the Dodgers did, or the Blue Jays were willing to, or everyone else. Why did Ohtani not go in that direction?
No question. You're right. And I applaud him for not using those teams to drive up the bidding and just be a stalking horse, right? I mean, if you're a free agent, you always want to get those teams involved, if for nothing else, to get the price up. But remember, when he was a free agent, he first signed with the Angels. He could have waited 2 more years and made more than $200 million. Instead of coming over at age 23, he signs for $2.3 million with the Angels in a minor league contract. And he said at that time he did not want Yankees, Red Sox, Mets, you name it, the Acela corridor, ruled them out right away. First of all, this guy wants to play in climate-controlled or really good weather. It's important to him because he's a two-way player. Doesn't want to go through cold weather, humidity, wind conditions, all those things that can disrupt your schedule. Creature of routine. Just didn't want the big city, but most importantly, outdoors, iffy weather. And that was the same case this time around, where he just ruled out those teams. They were never in it. Rich, I don't even think the Giants were in it based on their ballpark, their weather, the fact that they're not really a playoff caliber team right now, and who's to say when they will be. So really, it was just Toronto, which has a dome, which he loves, by the way. His numbers are great there. It reminds him a lot of the Sapporo Dome where he played in Japan. And the Dodgers, the Angels really weren't in it. They weren't getting to this kind of a number. So limited field, and this guy maxed out at the greatest contract ever for an athlete.
So the Angels... So I guess in retrospect, the Angels should have flipped him a couple summers ago or something like that. I mean, is that a fair 2020 hindsight to have here, Tom? At all?
Yeah, you could definitely make that argument just based on, the arc of a team, and especially the Angels, who haven't been in the playoffs in forever, to just try to get something back. But I look at it this way, Rich. This guy really is, our Babe Ruth in this generation, even better. I mean, Babe Ruth didn't play this long as a two-way player the way Ohtani has. And he was a drawing card. It's like this priceless gem that you have, and you have something of value, and you just don't trade it up so you can get a few more players in your minor league system to be better down the road. Artie Moreno, you can make a lot of arguments about how he runs that team, smartly or not, but he loves having star players there who will draw fans. And those people got to watch Shohei for 6 years. There's value to that. And listen, this year when at the trade deadline, they had a winning record, a positive run differential, like 2 or 3 games out of it. You can't pull the plug on a season.
No, I
if you're
wasn't
the Angels
talking
at
about
that
it.
point.
I wasn't talking about it this year. I'm talking about it last year because, I mean, let's be straight up here, Tom. I mean, you can't be obviously the number 7 is surprising, and as is the structure. But 2 summers ago, you got to sit here and think to yourself, are we willing to go to 5? Are we willing to go to 6? Because that's going to be the number if we keep playing this thing out. And I'll tell you, again, Susie Schuster, her because you guys, met years ago when the Angels with Tim Salmon and Erstad. I mean, those guys weren't like Trout or Ohtani, but everybody was filling up that stadium because they were winning. So you put some winning players in there. They're gonna fill the place up, Tom. She was there, you were there, I was there. That's my point about it with the Angels here.
There's no doubt that what you said is true. I mean, putting a winning team in there is going to be more attractive. You look at their attendance, and they still haven't gotten back to the level where they were with winning teams. So there's no question about that. I just think with Ohtani, you're never going to win a trade like that. And more than that, he can come back and haunt you because he is just the unicorn in the game. It's just this priceless asset that someone like Artie Moreno, who loves having named players who bring people to the ballpark, was just not going to trade. In fact, teams called, and it was Artie Moreno, the owner, not the general manager, who took him off the trade market that year, 2 years ago.
Tom Verducci here on the Rich Eisen Show. Okay, so now let's get to the money. It was Ohtani's idea to defer money, and he came up with the figure initially of all of it? Is that what you're saying to me?
Well, what he said to Nez Bolello is, can I defer my salary? And he wasn't dead set on all of it, but they had to look up what exactly is allowed in the CBA. What they found was the greatest percentage that's ever been before this one deferred was Max Scherzer with the Nationals. He had 50% of the $210 million contract with the Nationals deferred. You have a couple of guys, Mookie Betts, a couple other guys in the 20%, maybe 30%. That's it. So once Nez Bolello said you can't play for free, you have to have some number. Some reason they came up with $2 million. It's as good as a 1 or 3, I guess. But yes, it was Ohtani's idea. Now, there are a couple of reasons for that, Rich. He didn't want any team, and it was mostly likely going to be the Dodgers, to have to pay such a prohibitive luxury tax that they didn't have room to add players around him. It was really important for him that he didn't hamstring a team. And the other thing is, even making $2 million next year, guess who the highest paid player in baseball is? It's Shohei Ohtani, because he's making $50 million off the field. There's nobody like him in baseball in terms of being an international, brand ambassador for whatever you want. So he's got $50 million in his pocket going into the next year. So if you defer out $680 million 10 years from now with no interest, he's okay with that. I mean, just imagine the cartwheels the Dodgers did down the hallways when he came up with this idea that I'll play for you for $2 million a year. Crazy.
So does this mean that the 2033 or 2034 through 2043 Dodgers are going to have to pay $68 million on it? Does that count towards a luxury tax then? Or this is now completely separate from what counts towards a luxury tax, or the Dodgers just don't care that the entirety of the collective bargaining agreement may be totally different by then anyway? Let's just kick the can down the road and screw it and win World Series now. What about that?
Well, they don't care because they're essentially getting a Ferrari that they don't have to pay for until 10 years from now, and with no interest attached to it. And that's why the number is actually 46 a year, not 70 a year in true present day dollars. Now, they'll have to fund that money. They will have to pay that $60 million per year starting in 2034. By the way, they're also going to have to pay Mookie Betts about 10 or 11 million. Those guys will be 48, 49 years old. They're still collecting millions upon millions from the Dodgers. But as you fund that money and it accrues interest, and it's less than that far out than it is today, that's a no-brainer for the Dodgers to do. And, I hate to say this because we are so accustomed, Rich, to looking at these deals and saying, they're all Trojan horses, right? What is going on here, actually? And Ohtani's just a different cat, man. I always say, when you think about what's the golden age of baseball, it's usually that time when you were 10 years old, right? Because that's when you just have these wide eyes and you're looking at baseball for the first time and falling in love. Well, not to sound corny, but that's the way Ohtani looks at the game. And I think we're better off looking at this like Ohtani and being more naive than cynical when it comes to this deal. It's a great deal for the Dodgers, and it's a great deal for Ohtani. And he did take this from a really humble point of view to say, I don't want to hamstring the team, and I can afford to do this by getting $50 million coming to me off the field.
Well, and again, though, it's not like the NFL and the NBA where you're circumventing a hard cap and you're taking advantage of the soft part of a cap. This is to avoid paying lower market teams money that you don't want them to just pocket, because it's not going to go back into the competitive spirit of the game, because they're going to, the Angeloses aren't going to suddenly say, we're going to start paying people $25 million a year because we'll take some luxury tax money and do that. So my question for you is, the luxury tax was set up so teams like the Dodgers wouldn't have the top of an order being Betts, Freeman, Ohtani. That's why you have this system, and it's now been completely circumvented now by the largesse of somebody, as you point out, is not cynical in Ohtani, but it's happening. How does Major League Baseball feel about this right now?
First of all, they're happy that this guy is with the Dodgers, right? I mean, we have not seen Ohtani in the postseason, and there's a pretty good chance, considering the Dodgers have been in the postseason 11 straight years, you're going to see that now. You want your best players on the biggest stage. That's going to happen. Dodgers are a big brand. There's no question about it. This helps Major League Baseball. As far as circumvention goes, I mean, this is totally allowable in the CBA. Listen, Ohtani, you're never going to see someone play pitch and hit like Ohtani ever again. Not at this level. I'm sorry. People are saying, does this open the door for more Ohtanis? No, he's that much of a unicorn. And the same with this contract. What other player, Rich, is going to get to free agency and say, defer 97% of my salary? Nobody. I mean, again, the Dodgers must have been doing cartwheels when he brought that up. Most guys walk in there and they say, I want the money. I want to set records. I want a luxury box. I want limo rides or plane rides back and forth to home. I want all these perks. He didn't ask for any of that. He actually did the opposite and that said, you can have the money for 10 years. I don't need it. It's exactly what he said. He actually told the Dodgers, these numbers are laughable. He used that word. I mean, we just have to look at Ohtani differently than we do most of these players who get to the peak of their profession and want to max out because their value is attached. Don't get me wrong. He still has great value. Nobody's feeling sorry for him in terms of the money. But this is a very gracious, unusual, and I think unique gesture. And as far as the salary structure, Rich, the way I look at it now is we used to have the haves and the have-nots. We have 3 tiers now. You have the Dodgers and the Mets, then you have the haves, and then you have the have-nots. And that's the way it is right now. And maybe the Yankees want to join the Dodgers and the Mets, and maybe Yamamoto pushes the Yankees in that regard. But yeah, they're playing by different rules. But look what happened in the postseason last year. Arizona took them out in 3 games. So that's the great equalizer. The baseball postseason now is the great equalizer. It's hard to imagine the Dodgers not making the playoffs when they have Ohtani 10 straight years. But how many championships? I don't know. If they get 1, that's a lot the way the game is going because of the postseason. Because being that super third-tier team, that super team, so to speak, doesn't guarantee you anything in a 5-game series.
Tom Verducci, couple minutes left. I've got 2 more questions for you. First one, what about Mike Trout? Any idea how this is landing with him and what he might want to do you think?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, the whole idea that Trout was going to be traded was a complete false narrative. If you know Mike Trout, he's not that kind of a guy. He wants to please people. He's just the same kid from Millville, hangs out with his same high school buddies, never got into free agency. Remember, there were about 22 teams that passed on Mike Trout. The Angels drafted him. He's never forgotten that. He has signed 2 extensions with them. The only way they would ever trade Mike Trout if he walked in and said, get me out of here, trade me. He's not doing that. Now, he may go in there and say, listen, you guys better figure out a way to make this team more competitive because I want to win. But he's not the kind of guy to say, trade me.
And Yamamoto is the biggest name that's out there. What does everything else look like now that the Ohtani domino is finally fallen, Tom?
Yeah, this is amazing because Yamamoto, people thought the number was going to be a little over $200 million. Plus, there's a posting fee attached to that, about $30 to $40 million. Now that number is going to wind up over 300, whether it's with the posting fee or without. The market's going up because literally half the teams in baseball want to sign these guys. He's a free agent at 25 as a number 1 pitcher, and he's got the Yankees and the Mets bidding against each other. And oh, by the way, the Dodgers asked Ohtani, how would you feel about Yamamoto being on the team too? He's like, go for it. Sure, this is one reason why I'm deferring all this money. And they're after Josh Hader. I mean, so Yamamoto is really going to kill it. But there's also Roki Sasaki coming from Japan. If he is posted, to me, he's actually the better pitcher than Yamamoto. He throws a lot harder. He's more of a strikeout pitcher. Yamamoto is great. Don't get me wrong. He's a real pitch maker. But I don't know where Yamamoto is going to wind up, but that number keeps going up. He's got until January 4th to sign, and he's got the Yankees, the Mets, and the Dodgers falling over themselves trying to sign him. I think he's going to do okay, Rich.
I think so, too. What's I lied, last one for you. The most likely owner to call his superstar player and say, how much do you want to defer? Who's the one that's going to call up their superstar player making a gajillion dollars and saying, does 90 to 7%? What do you think? Just give it a whirl. Hey, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? So which owner do you think is going to do that, Tom?
Yeah, I think maybe the Dodgers do that again with Yamamoto. It worked once already. Just keep it going, man. If Shohei can do it, why can't you?
Tom, thanks for the time, man. Let's do this more often. It's a delight. Thanks for the information.
Thanks.
Right back at you. That's Tom Verducci of Sports Illustrated, Fox, and Major League Baseball Network. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.